Miami Dolphins week 1 of OTAs are in the books, and on today's Dolphins Today episode, we are going to look at the winners and losers from week 1 of Dolphins OTAs. I am Nic Rohloff, but make sure you are subscribed because there are 2 weeks of OTAs, and the Dolphins will get back to the field this week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So make sure you are subscribed for more OTA coverage and off-season content here at the channel. Goal is to get 30 subs on this video. Help me out. Grow the channel. Subscribe today. All right, we'll start with the loser list here. That is Cam Smith, the cornerback. And this is a pretty significant name to land on the loser list of the first week of OTAs because he is fighting for a roster spot after being a disappointment in his first 2 seasons, but also fighting for a starting position. And there were multiple reports this week that he did not have a good performance. It started on Wednesday, on the second day of OTAs, when reporters and media members were actually on site. But he got burned on a big-time 50, 60-yard play by Jaylen Waddle and then pulled up limping after giving up the long touchdown. Now, there's 2 things that we have to take away from this. One, he got burned by Jaylen Waddle, which, yeah, Waddle's a top 20, 25 wide receiver in football, but you still would not like to hear that Cam Smith get burns. But then the limping thing again. Like, he has consistently battled injuries through the first 2 seasons of his career, and it's just been so annoying to see on a daily basis. And I'll be honest, guys, like, I'm really close to giving up on Cam Smith. To me, after being selected inside the top 50 by the Dolphins in 2023, didn't play in his rookie season, got hurt in the beginning of 2024, cost him 4 or 5 games, and then when he did return to the field was horrible. Like, I just don't know how you could have an optimistic viewpoint with Cam Smith and his future with this football team. Like, I mentioned it last season, he got benched for the final 4 or 5 games of the season in favor of UDFA Storm Duck. And it's because Cam Smith was putrid on the football field, giving a completion percentage of 80% and better, a touchdown, a QB rating of 122.4. Like, he was torched by the Arizona Cardinals, Buffalo Bills in those week 8 and 9 games when Miami was trying to turn the season around when Tua Tagovailoa finally returned from injured reserve. A game that Miami should have been able to win at home against the Arizona Cardinals, blowing a double-digit fourth-quarter lead. And then that game in Buffalo the following week, they had a real solid shot to win that game as well. So I'm not going to say Cam Smith cost them those games, but he was really bad last year. And with him getting off to a rough start in OTAs, certainly a loser. On the flip side, a young player that has panned out so far, Chop Robinson, the 21st overall pick in the 2024 draft. He had an unreal rookie year, and he looks like he's getting his second season off to a solid start. Travis Wingfield, who was at OTAs on Wednesday, said that Chop Robinson was his top performer, had a sack in the first team period, then was able to get in for another sack on Zack Wilson. Couple plays later, he made a really good play on a run play for a TFL. Chop was just absolutely dominant on Wednesday. And it's not like he was the only person, that being Travis Wingfield, that had that same observation. David Ferrone said that Bradley Chubb and Chop Robinson were dominant in team drills at the OTA period. And this mostly came against Ryan Hayes, Austin Jackson, who returning from injury. Patrick Paul was allegedly relatively good in pass pro, so those plays were not coming against at least him. But Chop is in line for a big year too. Like, after having such a solid rookie year, the arrow on Chop Robinson is pointing up, up, up. And as he gets more help alongside him, like, it's only going to help him be more dominant, right? Like, last year, he was paired up with Emmanuel Ogbah, paired up with Tyus Bowser, Quentin Bell. Like, no offense to those guys, but they aren't the best edge rushers. And there's a reason for that. Like, but now that he'll be working in and along with Jalen Phillips, who has been dominant in his career, Bradley Chubb, one of the best edge rushers in football when healthy. Yeah, they're coming off injuries themselves, but you get 2 high-profile edge rushers like those guys forcing the opposing offense to focus on them. Well, that'll allow Chop to just be in more one-on-one situations, less attention to him, or vice versa, where Chop Robinson draws all the attention, and then Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb can clean it up. All I know is that if those 3 stay healthy, Chubb, Phillips, Chop, it's going to be dangerous for opposing quarterbacks this season when facing Miami. Which brings me to this question, which I think is a fascinating one. Over, under 9.5 sacks for Chop in 2025. I know it's a lofty goal to be a 10-sack guy in your second season, but I believe Chop can be that. Type O for over, type U for under. Let me know your predictions. Go back to the loser list here. We're going to go to that offensive lineman, Ryan Hayes, the player that allegedly got beat up pretty bad by Chop Robinson and Bradley Chubb. And that's why he lands on the loser list. When you talk about what plays Chop made, most of it was against Hayes. Chubb took him to school for a pair of sacks and team activities. I mentioned that it sounded like Patrick Paul held his own and put up a relatively good stat line, at least a clean sheet in pass protection scenarios, which I'll say is a good thing that he looks good. But Ryan Hayes, who's fighting to be a swing tackle on this roster, not off to a good start. He's likely going to be cut from the 53-man. When you think of this offensive line, your 5 starters, or at least projected, are Patrick Paul, James Daniels, Aaron Brewer, Jonah Savinaya, and then Austin Jackson, with depth pieces being Malik Meikenberg, Larry Bourne as the swing tackle, Andrew Meyer as the backup center. Like, the Dolphins only kept about 8 or 9 offensive linemen last year, so it's going to be a fight for Hayes to make this group. And after a rough start, although against really good edge rushers in Chop Robinson and Bradley Chubb, not off to a solid start in terms of him making the 53-man roster. Another winner. We're going to go to the cornerback room. We'll go Storm Duck, the UDFA that I mentioned in tandem with Cam Smith. Well, Duck, good for him, was rocking that orange jersey on Wednesday's practice. And if you are just joining us and don't know what that means, if you were wearing the orange jersey in practice, that means the previous practice, you performed very well. You get highlighted by the coaching staff. You get to choose the music playlist at practice, and you love to see that. Travis Wingfield noting that, but he also noted that Duck then made good plays on Wednesday. So not only did he perform well enough to get the orange jersey on Tuesday for Wednesday, but then made plays on Wednesday. Had a good PBU on a Tua pass to Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like, Duck fighting for a starting role on this football team, getting off to a good start. And if you watched our video last week of position battles in OTAs, you would know that the first one I talked about was that CB2 role that will be likely fought between Cam Smith and Storm Duck. Well, Cam Smith's on the loser list. Storm Duck's on the winner list. So if you are just keeping tally at home here early in the offseason at the end of May, early June, Storm Duck has the edge on Cam Smith for one of the boundary cornerback positions. Miami needs to fill that void. Jalen Ramsey, gone. Kendall Fuller, gone. Cater Coe's in the nickel. So if they sign that free agent that we expect them to do, then who is going to be that other CB2 on the boundary? Right now, probably looks like it could be Storm Duck. More winners and losers. Winner, Bradley Chubb. We kind of mentioned him a little bit here when speaking on Chop Robinson. We'll look more at Chubb here, but get your Dolphins hoodie. It's on sale, on clearance, usually about $70. Right now, half off for about $35. How about that? Chatsports.com/Dolphins sale is the link where you can get this hoodie. It is in the description and comments of today's video. Grab yours today while they still are in stock. One more time, chatsports.com/Dolphins sale. Another reason why Bradley Chubb's a winner is that he's just getting closer and closer to being fully healthy. He spoke to reporters after OTA's practice on Wednesday, said that his plan is to participate in 100% of the offseason workouts and OTAs and drills, preseason, training camp, mandatory minicamp, which is just awesome. Also mentioned that he is about 95% football-wise. He would like to be 100, obviously, but not playing for a year. He has to get back into the swing of things. Obviously missed the entire 2024 season with that ACL, MCL, PCL injury he suffered at the end of the 2023 season. So it's just good to see Bradley Chubb on the football field, participating in drills and team activities, but also performing well in them. We mentioned it earlier with what Wingfield had to say. Well, then he said another nice little blurb here on Bradley Chubb, saying that he looked excellent in his opinion. Body mechanics, sequencing, and footwork locked sharp in individual drills, and he carried it over to the team with a big TFL where he beat the tackler across his face. Chubb had a sack later with a bull rush, taking the tackle right into the quarterback. I could not be more excited to get Bradley Chubb back. He also just seems fired up to be a member of the Miami Dolphins. We talked a lot about early in the offseason how he could be a Dolphins cut candidate post June 1st because it would have saved Miami damn near $20 million. And with his contract, it just looked like he might not be on this roster long term. Well, he took a massive pay cut where his base salary got really brought down to almost the minimum, a lot of incentives for this year. And he was asked about that by reporters and said that it's something that he felt he needed to do. He wanted to stay in Miami, wanted to be on this roster, wanted to stay with this coaching staff that believes in him. And I'm glad they're able to work it out because, like I mentioned, Chubb, Phillips, and Chop, scary hours for opposing quarterbacks. And Chubb looks like he's getting off to a good start in offseason activities. Loser, new quarterback, backup that is, Zack Wilson, who was signed to a 1-year, $6 million deal with incentives up to $10 million, but hopefully those incentives never happen because that would mean Tua got hurt. Wilson had an up-and-down start at OTAs this week. Barry Jackson on Wilson saying that he completed a nice pass to D. Eskridge, who was the person who made that happen with a one-handed catch, but then struggled through a couple inaccurate to poor passes. And I don't want to overreact. I'm not going to act like this is like the biggest news ever, but we know throughout his career, the former second overall pick from BYU, the reason why it didn't work out with New York is because his decision-making was very, very bad, and he was oftentimes super inaccurate, which when then you compound that with bad decision-making, a lot of turnovers, a lot of missed throws, missed opportunities. It's been the Achilles heel throughout his career. It's why he got ran out of New York. It's why he was a backup last year for Bo Nix, and it's the reason why he's a backup again this year for Tua Tagovailoa. Now, I'm not going to act like I'm concerned over Zack Wilson because I think he's still going to refine, hopefully, his mechanics, his footwork, his decision-making with a good quarterback coach room. Think about what Miami has here. They have former OC Bobby Slowick. They have former OC Darrell Bevel. They have OC Frank Smith, Mike McDaniel. 4 really good offensive minds that can teach and coach up quarterbacks. So I am not going to overreact. I still think there are times where Wilson will struggle, but hopefully we don't see him on the football field at all because that would mean Tua Tagovailoa played all 17 games and hopefully cemented himself as the QB1 of the future of this football team. But hey, that will remain to be seen. But what is your confidence level in Zack Wilson as the backup to Tua? Scale it 1 to 10 for me down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and confidence on QB2. All right, final player we're discussing on today's show, the winner, that would be Ethan Bonner. So another corner here. We have 2 corners that are winners. We have 1 corner that is a loser. Why is Ethan Bonner a winner? Well, we mentioned Storm Duck getting the orange jersey on Wednesday's OTA practice. Well, the first OTA practice was Tuesday. There were 2 players in orange jerseys, Jalen Phillips and Ethan Bonner. So Bonner being credited for some early good observations and work this offseason. And if you remember last year, he actually got a lot of praise. He was someone that beat reporters and media members were very high on, and he ultimately made the 53-man roster. Now, he wasn't active and didn't get a lot of PT last season throughout the year, but maybe that changes this year. And if we're going to be honest, Ethan Bonner needs a very strong summer in OTAs, in minicamp, in training camp in the preseason to make this 53-man. Because Jason Marshall Jr., obviously drafted in the 5th round out of Florida, is likely going to be on this roster unless he's absolutely horrific. So you have Cam Smith, who maybe makes the roster, maybe is cut, but he probably makes it. You have Storm Duck, who likely makes it. You have Ethan Bonner fighting for a spot, Jason Marshall Jr., whatever person you sign in free agency. Like, there's going to be a lot of competition. Artie Burns is another player for these 53-man corner roster spots. So Bonner's going to have to perform well to make that roster spot his. We'll see if he does it, which is why you subscribe, because we'll have you covered with everything from OTAs, mini camp, training camp, and when August and September rolls around, we'll be live for preseason games, for the regular season games. I cannot wait. Subscribe to the channel and join us today.